Premier tournament, in fact.
Yes,
in the bottom right-hand side of the map.
Oh.
Beasting it up with a luscious hair. It is PtitDrogo.
And his opponent spawning up in the top left for the Platinum Heroes. It is YoungYakov. In the blue. But what I was going to say is, yeah, his ZVT to me has been what's turned my head the most. Like, he's taken down Spirit in macro games with immaculate creep spread. He took down Bunny with, yes, one of the games was definitely like a cheesy Ling Queen Nidus, but then he kind of just beat him up in the next game with like straight up macro play, and it was a sight to see. Like, he is really, really good, and his mechanics are very impressive. But ZVP is a very different beast. So I didn't get a chance to complete that point, but that's me completing a point I set up, 4.5 minutes ago. ZVP is very different from ZVT in terms of where the skill set kind of comes through. And I feel like stylistically, Drogo has already shown, and historically it's been the case as well, but he's already shown that his ZVP is a really hard, or his PvZ, I should say, is a really hard matchup to beat. He plays Charge a Lot of Mortal Archon extremely well. He gave Lambo a really difficult time. This is going to be a tough matchup for, I think, both players.
No, I completely agree. I mean, Drogo is such a methodical player that I think if he gets in the zone, if he does his thing, if he does what he's rehearsed, he is always excellent at it, right? I think it's up to YoungYakov here to throw Drogo a little bit of his game. Like, it's like, like you were saying earlier in one of the earlier matchups, so you gotta play the player, not the game, a lot of the time. And here I think that the biggest strength of Drogo, like, let's not even point to the weakness, but the biggest strength of Drogo is how good he is at planning and at having thought through all the minutiae of what will happen with his units throughout the game, right? So if you can throw him a little bit of curse, I feel like that's your opening to try to make something happen.
Yeah, no, I think that is something that YoungYakov certainly has the skill set to do, whether it be with something like a very quick layer and a Queenling Nidus, or maybe a Queen Walk. I don't think we're necessarily going to see that, but I am with you. I would like to see something to try and disrupt Drogo's kind of
luscious flow.
His luscious flow, exactly. Because if he gets into that flow, it is going to be damn near impossible to stop him. Like, it is, yeah. I don't want to oversell this, and I don't want to make it seem like YoungYakov doesn't have a chance, because he certainly does. And if anything, he's the much more experienced player in recent practice. Oh, a little bit of a missed opportunity right there from Drogo. He actually body blocked the drone turning into a spore crawler. But I think he was maybe paying attention to the Lings in his main base that got the scout on that Stargate, and it means he doesn't get the drone. So, kind of a funny interaction where YoungYakov, because he sacrifices 2 Lings, ends up saving a drone for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that works out for him well, right? And on the side of Drogo, yeah, you just want to mitigate for damage. It's difficult to pay attention to everything, so understandable as well. And yeah, there's nothing crazy about this game so far, right? We have the Oracle here. Maybe when the second one is out, Drogo will feel safe enough to go and try to make something happen on the map, especially when he will have this pylon to put his adept in between. But yeah, like I was saying before, he tends to be very methodical and very kind of safe in his approach. Drogo does, right? Like, he likes to get to his comfort zones, and he has, like, when I talk to him, like, he could explain like every part of the process and why he does everything. He's very much like a Lambo type player in approach.
Yeah, very methodical. We'll get in here with the double Oracle into the natural. Nice Spore Crawler morphs from YoungYakov, but he still loses 3 drones in total. And it's not like those 3 Spore Crawler morphs are cheap either. Like, you add them up, that's an extra drone worth of cost, basically. 48 minerals for the 3 of them, I'm pretty sure. I just put myself on the spot with the math, but
somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, it's,
let's go with somewhere in the ballpark of a drone.
Yeah. And that's costly. For Drogo, it is going to be the Forge, Twilight Council, and Robo, and when all those 3 buildings come down at basically the same time, it almost always means charge. This is exactly what we were expecting. Ooh, Drogo, though, with a find in the main base. Able to snipe a queen, keeps the Oracle alive, and might just get the second one.
Another one, and now has free reign to go on the drones until he runs out of energy, essentially, which it's pretty soon here. Not gonna get that last one, unfortunately, as the slide wasn't perfect, but 4 drones and 2 queens. You're gonna be happy with that.
That is actually fantastic damage. Drogo is one of the players, by the way, speaking of like methodical moves and whatnot. He is like, well, you know what? When I get in there with 2 oracles, if I find 2 queens on their own, my oracles have lots of energy, they're full HP, full shields, I can kill the 2 queens. Yeah. And that is kind of what he was setting up for with that little move into the natural with the 2 oracles. And that's why I think, unlike many other players, Drogo doesn't oftentimes go in with his first oracle. Not never, but I feel like he likes to do his own thing. And to echo what you were saying, he has his own approach to it. And it's a really cool thing, because when you know it so inside and out, even subtle differences can make it much more difficult to prepare for you specifically. It's not the same as playing against a player who only plays mech versus a player that plays bio from the Zerg perspective, or even from the Protoss perspective. But it does make the preparation just a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the timing is a little bit different. Like the energy level of the Oracle, if they arrive together, is going to be a little bit different, right? So you'll have more gas than if you send your first Oracle out. You're going to have the full HP, whereas if you send your first Oracle out, you may not. So yeah, those are very good, very good points, I think, in terms of like how Drogo does his own thing, and then can look for those opportunities, right? Because it's also about the position of the queens as well, right? And whether you can take the fight like far enough from the spores and all of these things.
Yeah, and it works out really well with the, I think, current meta of ZVP these days. Oh, that's a slow warp in pylon. This is going to be a German taxi from YoungYakov, by the way. He's gone for roach speed, he's gone for +1 missile, and he is going for broke right here. Drogo is going to finish up a second robotics facility. He's trying to take a 4th base, but this looks very scary right now. And there's a lot of static defenses at the 3rd, but if YoungYakov can just ignore that and go for the natural, this might be a little scary. He's kind of getting surrounded, though, a little bit.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, he's taking advantage, Drogo, that of the queens not being here yet, but as they arrive, he's going to have to disengage a little bit. Now, the YoungYakov kind of trapped into a corner here of sorts, chasing an immortal that he's going to get, but at what cost, as the queens have been completely decimated on the side, and this is looking like a comfortable hold for Drogo.
Yeah, that could not have gone more perfect for Drogo. You mentioned the oracles took advantage of the fact that the queens were not out yet, and then the Archons kind of isolated the queens, and the oracles were just able to free fire on the Roach Ravager, kind of off screen a little bit, as YoungYakov committed hard into the natural.
Yeah.
This is now the second time I've seen an attack try to push through that middle ground location on site Delta against the 3-base Protoss, and just not quite get smashed, but kind of gets that. This one got smashed, but
this one giga smashed.
Even the one yesterday where Lambo tried to break through against, it was, who was it actually? Christianer. Tried to break through against Christianer with a massive supply lead and a huge Roach Hydra army. It was the same position where you're kind of getting hit from 2 high grounds at once, and it's just really hard to break that location. Drogo, the thing is, behind all this, not only did he smash that attack and comes out of it with a big economic lead in terms of workers, he didn't lose anything. Like, his 4th base is fully saturated. He's on 8 gases right now. Storm is going to complete momentarily. If Drogo hits with Storm, I really struggle to see how YoungYakov is going to be able to make a defense happen.
Yeah, I mean, for YoungYakov, that was a lot of eggs to put on that basket. It's going to be very difficult to come back, and now Drogo has an insane army. So, I don't know, for some reason that attack felt tiny as well, no?
It didn't feel like it had a whole lot of oomph. Like, it felt like YoungYakov really rushed it, and maybe that meant that a lot of his units didn't join up. We are seeing YoungYakov trying to add on Hydras, but Drogo, he's already going to get in here on this base with some Zealots. Snipe attempt on a High Templar almost gets it, but even if he had sniped that High Templar, I wonder if this can even be held. Like, if Drogo doesn't even cast a single Storm, he might still be able to break through. But with Storms, I feel like this is just hopeless without like a significant number of lurkers or the biggest corrosive bios you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, this is the worst and the best games to commentate because it's like the outcome seems so clear. But, you know, if it's anything else, then our minds will be blown. So that's the upside. As Storms do connect, and yeah, there is no chance indeed. This is rough.
The Oracles got double biled and they both went down, but did not matter worth a damn. This it makes me think of a really funny tweet I saw about basketball, where it was like, who was it? I think it was. It's just a really funny tweet. It's like Chris Paul hits a massive 3 to cut the lead down to 42, and it's like, if you know basketball at all, it's like. Yeah. Just not even remotely close. It's like trying to hype up, you know, like this completely over game. But all things considered, like, fantastic game from Drogo. He could not have shut that attack down any harder. Like, I legitimately think that there's always things you can do better in a fight, but I don't think there's anyone in the world that would be like, no, I want to redo that fight. It wasn't good enough.
Yeah, no, that was definitely clean. And I mean, YoungYakov, he tried something, right? Tried to go into the natural and such, but everything kind of worked out against him as well. Like, you know, you're walking into the natural, you're like, oh, okay, like maybe I have an opening here. You run into an immortal. That's that's gonna soak up like the most amount of time for you to go through, right? And then your units are on the low ground. You didn't see the Archons, so it's just tough. It's just a tough situation, and a really strange all-in, right? Like, it felt like it should have had a lot more oomph to it, but it just didn't. And that was an underwhelming game one.
I mean, to be honest, I think Charge Lot Immortal Archon matches up really well against that kind of thing. Unless Drogo had been caught with the War Prism and both Archons off, like in the middle of the map somewhere. Like, the War Prism just adds so much micro potential. The charge lots warp into the fight, and wherever, like, if the Zerg breaks through anywhere and you warp in 8+1 charge lots on top of it, like, it gets really difficult to find any value there. It just feels like that particular defensive setup, not even defensive, but just game plan in general, is really, really good for the Protoss to try and defend something like that. Yeah, I hope we see something different from YoungYakov in game number 2, but nothing different from this man. Spawning down on the bottom right. Top marks for him. It is PtitDrogo.
On the top left-hand side, it is his opponent, YoungYakov. Double Y, they call him on the streets.
Yep. It's, I think that's the prefix to airports for some airports.
YY?
YY. I know it is for the Toronto International Airport. It's like YYZ or YYZ. But
yeah, it's also the classic crying face.
Oh, interesting. I wasn't even thinking of that.
Yeah, TT is the
TT is what I think of. Yeah,
for sure. But YY kind of works.
Yeah, YY kind of works. I was gonna call him like as his street name, the Unfinished Airport. Like, what a terrible nickname that would be. Just absolutely, no one would ever want to be known as that. Like, yeah, come in for the Unfinished Airport. The classic crying face.
But he's at the same time, that's kind of what he is. It feels like an unfinished airport, right? Like, I feel like at some point he's gonna be great, but he's still gotta, flesh out the hangars.
The runway's not done yet.
The runway's not done yet.
Yeah, don't land planes here, please.
But it's looking really nice so far,
Yeah. Like, in like 5 to 6 years, like, this is going to be a beautiful airport. Don't you worry.
Just the best, yeah. The biggest airport.
Oh, man. Okay, so Oceanborn. We once again do see the hatch block coming in from Drogo. This is not crazy. I mean, it's a very comfy play if you like to go for it. And Drogo is one of those players that he won't really mix it up, whether he goes for the hatch block or not. I feel like he's gonna have that play in his head. Like, I'm going for the hatch block. That's what I do. You know, it's up to you to deal with that.
Yeah. There's yep. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna deal with it in the way that most Circs will. I would have loved for an adjustment there to maybe, like, you know, you drop the 15 hatch perhaps, like the Eric style. Like, I think that's kind of like a good counter if you know your opponent is as methodical as Drogo, and that is the thing that he likes to do, right? So he is probably gonna move out with a probe at that timing. So if you can get the hatchery in front of that, then they wasted the scout time and they didn't get what they came for, and you get your hatchery anyway. It's always a nice move.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to kind of set yourself up to win the mind game, even if it's just a very minor thing. And in terms of like the total, who wins the game, it's unlikely to determine it necessarily. Although, again, certain players who are really aggressive and really effective with their adepts, somebody like a Max Pax, who is almost always going to be able to find early game damage, there I think it actually is really important to disadvantage him as much as possible with those first two adepts. But for someone like Drogo, who's not necessarily going to always send those adepts in, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to not get your hatchery up in the location you'd like. But I would have... That's the kind of approach that I would have liked to see from YoungYakov, playing more the player. And that's the kind of thing that is hard to do when you still are kind of on the come up as a player. It's hard to have that, let me really dissect my opponent's weaknesses and try and find an opening there.
Yeah, for sure. As the Oracles are gonna jump in this time, the Queens are pretty close to the Spore, so they will take shelter pretty faster. And YoungYakov does well to identify a similar situation to last game, but not falling for the same trap, right? Like where he starts trading with the Queens potentially as Drogo just dives in and gets 2 drones. Could have been 3. The damage was there for 3, but not the right targeting.
Yeah, I think YoungYakov is going to be okay with that, to be honest. Obviously, losing 2 drones is not a great feeling, but he blocked the exact move that Drogo was trying to set up for, which was, I find 2 queens defending a base, no spore crawler, and I just kill the queens. Because if there is no spore in the natural there, you are going to find yourself in, well, you're going to find yourself potentially just losing 2 queens and maybe losing like 4 or 5 drones behind it. Drogo, he finds a creep tumor and gets the denial on the 4th base. That's really nice. And even though it's small, those little moves they're frustrating. They kind of take a toll on your mental just a little bit over time.
For sure. And now, I mean, the 3rd is here, but so are the Oracles. That's going to be an easy cancel.
Yeah, and that's more than a little bit annoying. Getting the additional drone behind this. It's
very worth.
Even if you're playing a style that's a little bit static in the form of that charge lot Archon setup, when you're as good with the Oracles as Drogo is, it's still really tough to play against as a Zerg. Like, there is no doubt that you have to outplay Drogo to beat him. You can't really trick him. But as I say that, we are going to see an attempt to do so. That's the thing. I feel like Drogo is so good at reading when it's Spire and figuring it out, even if he doesn't see the Spire itself. He is so good in most cases at starting up a Phoenix when he gets the read, at having cannons and shield batteries in the mineral line. I feel like, I don't know. I don't think specifically against Drogo I'm the biggest fan of this Spire.
Yeah, I mean, for the time being, it is unaccounted for, though. We haven't seen that Phoenix start. We haven't seen a Drogo make much in the way of anti-air, so maybe there is yet hope for YoungYakov for a surprise, but I generally agree with you. I mean, with players with this much experience as Drogo, he'll be very aware as the roaches are a move command, and that opens up for the Archons to do a little bit more damage onto the mineral line, and on the other side, the Oracles are also going to chime in.
The one thing I will say, as I set the table for this being a bad Muta transition, is that by showing the roaches and by showing everything that he has and no gases at the 4th, this Muta setup is going to be pretty unexpected. Drogo has not started that Phoenix yet. Does he have any cannons or shield batteries in his mineral lines? He's building cannons and shield batteries somewhere. Yeah, there's okay, nothing in the natural. Anything in the main? Nothing in the main. All right, these mutas could end up being very good, and they do actually jump the War Prism.
Okay.
That is a really nice start. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, now
And
just...
Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, now he has to just choose the right base. The main is a good target. The third is a good target as well. But yeah, that was a good start.
The one thing I will say is that Drogo overreacted pretty hard in a previous series to mutas, and he is maybe doing it here again with a second Stargate coming down, and that could mean that this lurker transition from YoungYakov may have some big power. Normally, I feel like if you're going to want to try and like leverage that advantage, you're going to want to try and go for maybe like Roach, Ravager, Ling Bane, because it gets set up a lot quicker. But we are going to see the Roaches finding Drogo a little bit out of position here. Phoenix is being microed quite well and will survive thanks to the help of that battery overcharge, but 8 probes go down. YoungYakov drones super hard behind this. He just finished his Infestation Pit. We're going to see a Hive behind this as well, and Drogo just now starts his +2 weapons. I actually do like the way this has turned out for YoungYakov very well.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I mean, the Muta are going to eventually fall for sure, but Drogo did add that extra target and whatnot, like you were saying, so that's kind of scary for him. At least if he doesn't make any more Phoenix, I think this will be fine. YoungYakov hasn't added a single extra Muta, and he has pretty much been very straightforward about how he wants to sacrifice these, right? Like, he just kept them on that side of the map. He wasn't really trying to do anything else there, so Drogo does well enough to not make additional Phoenix, and that's kind of like not the overcommitment you were hoping for. And yeah, it looks good now for him, right? It looks good for a defense.
Yeah, and those Phoenixes are going to be able to add value by lifting up a little bit of Roach Hydra, making sure that the units do go down. And even with the Storms not really connecting, that kind of went about as well as those mutas could have hoped to go. And Drogo's setup is just so damn good right now. Look at the army value. He's got Storm, even with the late +2 weapons, which is not going to line up for this timing particularly well. If he were to attack, I don't think YoungYakov could defend his 5th on that top side. But Drogo looks like he is just thinking macro play. His base layout is very interesting, though. We almost never see the Protoss take this topside base as their 5th. This might be getting prepared for a potential late game. Oh, these High Templar are very much lost, but not going to be a big punish.
Push from this high ground, too. I mean, it's a good setup as well to push onto the area that YoungYakov is expanding towards, right? Like, you could actually go for maybe Tempest or something like that down the line if you really want to keep control of the map. And in this sense, if you split it vertically and take the right, it looks pretty great for Drogo. I mean, the thing about YoungYakov, like, I was thinking about the Muta, and I feel like it might have been better if he didn't go for the War Prism, if there was a way to hide the Muta and just go to the other side. But there's no way that he could have known that it was better, right? Like, so it's so difficult as a start player to be like, oh yeah, let me not kill this War Prism and 2 Archons in favor of potentially ending the game or doing game-ending damage by killing a bunch of probes, because you don't know. Maybe your opponent did get a whiff. Maybe they do have cannons, right? It wasn't the case, but yeah.
And that's the thing about having the reputation that Drogo has, is that sometimes you might assume what I assumed, and that Drogo was going to be able to deal with this very well. Zealot run by is going to finish off this hatchery. We got a Nidus in the main base, but oh, Drogo's on top of it. There are lurkers in there. Meanwhile, big storms on the Hydras. Drogo.
There are no lurkers in here. Yeah, the lurkers are on the other side, which means they're not here for the most part. A couple of them morphing, one burrowed right now. Storms are absolutely nasty.
Those are
my Dave.
Gigantic storms right there on the Hydras. Even without them, it was going to be tough to hold, but now as the lurkers finally get back in here, those are some big lurker spines. Drogo's got to be a little bit careful here, but as long as he doesn't lose everything to these lurkers, which actually, hang on, there's no detection, is there? Oh my god, there's no detection. Oh man, that turns so quickly.
Greatly.
Loses everything and the rallied immortals. Okay, this went from being so good to Drogo to so bad so quickly.
Yeah, and we're gonna add the number of resources for the sake of drama there. That was 3,000 or so that he got up to on the flow, Drogo, while this was all going on. Luckily for him, he does have a carrier, but not for long, perhaps. Only 2 Hydras out of the Nidus so far.
There's still no detection here, and he lost all his oracles. No oracles. Oh my god, he's gonna lose the carrier too.
No way.
This game went from so good for Drogo to he's just dead. in like
He is just dead.
30 to 40 seconds.
I can't believe
Holy
he's done
crap.
this.
Drogo, all he needed to do was just
He's
not
floating 4K.
put... He is.
It's tough.
The thing is, he was going into basically the hard counter for lurkers, which is, of course, carriers.
Yeah.
If Drogo had just chilled after he denied the 5th base, even without that, even if he just doesn't lose detection, and he's able to detect those lurkers and he gets a more even trade, even if he loses everything and just doesn't let the Nidus up, and he gets into carriers, it's, oh my god, this game fell apart so quickly for Drogo. And YoungYakov, well, he exploits a couple of small mistakes from Drogo, and that turned so quickly.
Yeah, it's like you were saying. I mean, he just needed to be patient. He just needed to identify his win condition, right? It's like, yeah, I have all this investment into Stargates, etc. I don't need to kill you right now. Can I kill you right now? Probably, but I don't need to. And then it's like, you know what? I'm gonna kill you right now because I have everything that I need. And then he doesn't have detection, and now we're here. It's insane.
And to be fair, I should actually reframe that. I said small mistakes. That was a huge mistake from Drogo. Like it was literally a game-losing mistake. But it was like, up until that point, he'd played such a clean, immaculate game. He's gonna clean up this attack, but all the Stargates have gone down. Okay, there we go. Finally, we do see the GG.
It's yeah, I think it's a huge mistake in the sense that it is a game-losing mistake, but it's not a huge mistake in the sense that it's kind of easy to make that sort of mistake, right? Like we've all been there, where you're like, yeah, this game's over. Let me just end it, and then it's you know, and then everything goes wrong, and you're like, oh crap, I should have really spent my resources. I should have really looked after my transition. Like I would have been so much stronger in 30 seconds, in 1 minute, in 2 minutes, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Even after his army got cleaned up, it feels like if that Nidus worm doesn't get up in the main, like Drogo's still kind of fine. It's 5 base to 4. He's going into 3 Stargate carrier.
Yeah.
Ah, man.
He has a bank. Yeah, he has time.
He's got a huge bank. If
Nidus doesn't happen, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
A huge, just insane bank. Yeah.
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 Good job from YoungYakov there to give himself the chance and to like recognize what his win condition was, because his win condition was basically that was his only win condition. Like if we even get up to 4 carriers, because I don't think there might have been +1 carapace for YoungYakov. I'm not actually 100% sure, but either way, once you get up to a solid number of carriers versus a Zerg whose economy is not amazing, and they've been forced into so much Hydra Lurker, things are going to be tough. And also Storm was done. Like, oh man, that is a game where you're kicking yourself for losing it for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's a throw. I mean, at least you gotta win this one, or else. Yeah. I mean, we know Drogo to have a temper as well, right? Like he is a player that can tilt, that can be emotionally afflicted by games like this. So let's hope he can keep his cool, come back, close it out, do a wave of his hair, and chill.
One more for the camera, exactly. That was... God, that turned so hard and so quickly. All right, here we go. Spawning down on the bottom left. Able to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. It is the Platinum Heroes' YoungYakov.
Man, managing to snap defeat from the jaws of victory. In the top right-hand side, it's PtitDrogo.
I set you up for that one, and I was hoping you would pick it up, and I'm very glad that you did.
Nice.
I feel a little bit bad doing it to poor Drogo after that loss, but it's just it was too good of a setup. We're gonna see YoungYakov going for a pool first and talking about responding to players and how they particularly like to go about things. This is a neat little setup. We are gonna see Drogo maybe thinking that there's a gold base, but obviously there's not going to be, and it will turn into probably a hatchery at the natural. Drogo's already checked the third. He's checked the gold base location. I think you want to send a probe down to the natural like right away against this, but it's going to be too late, and that hatchery will get up.
Yeah, you love to see it. It's gonna be a hatch first on the other side. I mean, and YoungYakov is going for the follow up on the relatively quick link speed as well. So he will want map control out of this. I don't think that you ever anticipate that hatchery will finish, right? Like if you're YoungYakov, so probably go for the gold on the back of this. This is, and the reason I intuit this could be the case is because I like to take my gold off of a relatively early link speed, right? Like uncontested on a map like this one, but we'll see what he thinks, what he wants to do. I mean, he wants his exploit, his natural, right? Like by the looks of it.
Yeah, it does look that way. Drogo wants to confirm that the natural is being taken, make sure that there's not anything crazy coming his way, but obviously the probe is going to get pushed away. Drogo is of the mind that you don't pull probes against this, by the way, with the 2-gate. At least that is what I have heard from the pros. I believe Scarlet mentioned that Drogo is like one of the guys who responds to this correctly. And YoungYakov will let that finish. Oh, cute little move right there. With the shield battery, that fulfills 2 purposes. 1, doesn't let the lings in. 2, traps the drone inside. It doesn't get to escape.
Yeah, very, very nice indeed. And yeah, that's definitely the right response from Drogo, right? Like he has it down to the T. It's when you go for hatch blocks like that, like a lot of the time you're hoping that your opponent doesn't react properly. And to be fair, like if you know, if you hatch block a lot, then even when you face like the best possible position that you can go up against, no one has theory on it that they share with anyone else because it's so rare, right? It's so unlike, or maybe like some of the top players will share with each other, but by large there isn't an agreed upon standard against this sort of thing. So a lot of players make a lot of mistakes, and yeah, I mean, Drogo has it down to a T. There's no way it's worth it for YoungYakov to ever finish that hatchery. It's such a fat investment. So the fact that Drogo didn't pull any probes just puts him in a really good spot.
And it is really easy to make one small mistake, an actually small mistake, unlike what I said in the previous game. To make one small mistake, recall will get forced out here. I like the usage of the queens from the high ground there to shell away at these adepts. Without that, it would have actually been a lot more difficult, I think, to clean that up and force it back. But good play from YoungYakov.
Very nice. Yeah, because if you look at the pocket that he was shooting at, that's the best pocket that the units could stay in.
Yeah.
So Lynx would really struggle to clear that on their own. That's, yeah, they send them to the open space and pepper them on the way there.
Drogo getting a little bit supply blocked here at 47. I do think YoungYakov comes out of this still in a very strong position. Drogo is going to have to find some damage, either A, with these adepts, or B, with the oracles, I think, to make up for things. And with YoungYakov pumping out 10 more lings, I feel like it is going to be hard for Drogo to find this value.
I don't know. I think this third is pretty exposed still. I don't think Drogo should finish the shade, but this should force out a lot of units from YoungYakov. Oh, I guess the recall is gone is the only bad thing about all this. And I mean, it's still at depths. The Oracle does get focus fired away. Not the worst trades for Drogo. It could have certainly been much worse.
Yeah, the rule of thumb that I always look at in ZVP is when does the Zerg pass the Protoss in terms of worker count? And usually the rule of thumb I go for is if it's late, or if it's any time after 40, the Protoss is almost always in a good position, especially assuming they've gotten a standard third base timing. If it's, late 30s to right at 40, it's usually pretty even. If it's mid 30s, it's good for the Zerg. And if it's early 30s, the game is almost over. Like, if the Zerg is on 35 drones when the Protoss is on, 30 probes, unless there's some, weird extenuating circumstances, like the Zerg hasn't been injecting, or 4 adepts are about to kill, 6 drones or something, it's, such a brutal position. But YoungYakov does have a good setup here. We are going to see, though, a couple of drones do get picked off by the lack of a spore at this third. Oh, this is what I was talking about in the previous... As a setup to this.
A lot of overlords here.
There is a lot of overlords, actually. But Ling Nidus.
He's gone the right way, too.
Ling Queen Nidus, and I think he did build a Baneling Nest. So this is an update on what Dark used to do. Dark used to love going for just Ling Queen Nidus off one gas. But recently, he has added a Baneling Nest. We do have the Oracle in the main base. Able to grab some drones. Did it scout? Okay, where's the Baneling nest, actually? We got to see the Baneling nest. We got to see if this has been scouted yet. I don't think it has. And there is vision in the main base. We just saw Drogo drop down a pylon right as that Nidus Worm went down. Does he see it? Yes, of course he does.
Yeah, he's moving the army towards it. I mean, Adepts are not going to have a lot of damage output. However, for the time being, the Stalkers are doing what they can, but the Queens are out, and that means transfuses are available. And the Nidus will be effective in getting the units out at the very least. No shield battery in the main as well makes things very difficult for Drogo. In the third base, he is defending well with oracles and the shield batteries. And in the main, I mean, YoungYakov is running a little bit low on units, morphing a couple of Banelings as well, which are gonna kind of stop his momentum as far as the Lynx and Queen attack is concerned to some degree. But maybe they can get themselves into the mineral line, Dave. Just 4 pros, not too bad.
That it could have been a lot worse. It's good positioning from Drogo with all of his SimCity, and that's the only reason why I think he even has a chance here. Baneling's actually not getting much value. That is actually going to be a lot of dead queens. Oh, YoungYakov is not trying to save them. That is actually really rough right there for YoungYakov. Drogo will ultimately clean this up. YoungYakov, though, lost like 3 extra, maybe even 4 extra queens more than he should have. Cute little move popping out at this third, but even with this, Drogo loses his third Nexus. He is going to have Blink behind this, but...
Not a Nidus in the main.
With only 4 gateways, I don't think with the potential for a counterattack to get meaningful damage, it's not going to be easy for Drogo. Drogo, this is a really tough position he finds himself in.
Yeah, the dream scenario here is you move out to take the 4th, like as in to kill your opponent's 4th and take your 3rd, and then I think the game is playable. Anything short of that, I think Drogo will be in a little bit of trouble right now.
Yeah, there is always the danger that YoungYakov under drones in this situation, even if Drogo can't actually be aggressive. But in this case, obviously, Drogo, I feel like, has to be aggressive. So it's a little bit of a balancing act for the Zerg to make sure you build the right number of units. Don't over-defend, don't under-defend. But this feels like it is, at the moment... Oh, my God, that Warpin was clutch as hell. This feels, at the moment, like it is YoungYakov... Oh, especially with him forcing the army back home. Yeah, this feels like it is YoungYakov's game to lose.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that army going back is a lot of time that Drogo doesn't have out on the map again. Again, if Drogo gets the knight here, he is doing the right thing in retaking the 3rd, etc. But if he could get the 4th of YoungYakov, reset it, right, like delay it, then I think that would have been a good stabilizing point. But as it stands, I mean, getting a little bit of creep tumors here and there, I don't think he will be able to extend too far, too much further on creep.
Yeah, it's going to be really...
Back it up.
Really tough, especially now with roach speed done for YoungYakov. Of course, these Stalkers do have +1 attack, and that's going to mean trades are... It's going to be nice for trades, but I think just trading against the army is not enough for Drogo in this situation, and especially when you look at that income differential, it is going to start to even out a little bit as Drogo's 3rd base, actually finishes and the probes all line up there. But if YoungYakov keeps this 4th base alive, just to echo what you were saying, it feels like he's in just such a strong position. Oh, I do not like that recall. I guess he was worried about the Lings coming back. He could have even lost more Stalkers than he did. I don't know. That felt... It's just such a rough position for Drogo right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he is doing what he can to try to stabilize. It is the final game of the series, and it's an important game. So obviously he's gonna want to stay. Okay, he tries to take a position there where the units of his opponent are gonna be choked up, but it's not good enough. So the blink actually backfires, though, where he's gonna end up losing a lot of those Stalkers. And on the chase is now going to be YoungYakov trying to breach into the 3rd. There is a shield battery overcharge, so he will get pushed back for now. But yeah, I mean, a long way for Drogo to stabilize, or I don't see anything that gives me hope either, right? Like, there's no storm or I guess +3 attack is something, but there's no storm, there's no disruptors, there's nothing explosive that says, okay, like, if he lands one of these and big time, it's gonna happen.
Meanwhile, on the other side of that coin, YoungYakov is heading towards something that is explosive in the form of those lurkers and the form of that hive for the lurker upgrades. This this is such a difficult position. I feel like I've been saying that for the last like 4 minutes, but Drogo is going to have to, he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat to have a chance in this one. Now, this is a relatively small Zerg army, but with no Storm, it feels like it actually is kind of allowed to be on the map when it feels like it shouldn't be allowed. Oh!
Yeah, oh, that's tough. I mean, Storm's not even done. It's only halfway done or even less. And the Templars are going to get sniped. One Archon, well, two of them morph into an Archon, but not in range of the shield battery. YoungYakov with a great position here in the middle. Even if this army gets cleaned up, he's already traded more than cost efficiently enough to justify this attack. And he will be very happy with it.
Yeah, and this is funny because the Lings kind of opened the door for this to be a possibility. It looked like they weren't doing anything really meaningful, but they actually drew the army of Drogo partially to the left, and that's what left those High Templar exposed. That's what left the Immortal exposed, the Stalkers split up, and YoungYakov is going to be able to find just crippling damage, and he will shut the door on any potential comeback. Very well executed by YoungYakov. Drogo is going to stick around in this game for the moment, but yeah, it's only a matter of time, and GG does get called. YoungYakov survives and sticks around, and we're going to see him on Sunday for that do or die day.
Yeah.